The unexpected outbreak of the pandemic has caused a great recession globally. The deadly virus claimed many lives and caused unemployment and a drastic drop in growth. Welcome folks, in today's video, we will be going through a list of some of the countries which had significant losses due to the pandemic. Before we get started, make sure you've subscribed to our channel and turn on the post notifications to stay updated about our latest videos. The deadly virus traveled all around the world and claimed many lives. In the initial phase, the peculiarity and nature of the virus were unknown to many, which led to a holdup in taking abrupt actions. However, vaccines have announced their arrival in the markets globally. The impacts caused on the economy are enormous. 15. Georgia. On February 27, 2020, the first case of coronavirus identified by the authorities caused a massive panic. A total of 888,000 were infected, claiming 13,821 lives. A sudden downfall in the market and healthcare and different sectors caused the stock decline. The pandemic imposed a standstill in the economy due to travel bans. The Georgian economy dramatically depends on the US, China, and Russian economy as well due to the economic linkages. Currency depreciation and stock inflation worsened in the upcoming days. The economy depends on 28% of household consumption, like clothing and transportation, and 9% on the tourism sector. 14. Chile. Chile has marked 731,000 infected cases and 18,537 mortality. The country saw a substantial increase in infection after April. During the winter, the rate skyrocketed. Chile depends much on exports from the copper industry. A long-term fall in copper price affected employment and wages. The decline in national income by 4.5% led to a negative GDP growth. In low-income areas, mobility was only reduced up to 40%, causing a hike in cases. In the high-income region, mobility got reduced by authorities to 80%, leading to poverty in low-income areas. The country eventually landed on having significant debt and received emergency funds from IMF and the World Bank, considering their scenario. The number of citizens below the poverty line increased from 3.4% to 12.3%. 13. Serbia. The first case of COVID-19 reported in the country was on March 6, 2020. 103 million were infected and 2.24 million lost their lives due to the deadly virus. Similar to other countries, Serbia faced an economic downturn. Serbia faced a 2.5% contraction of the economy due to the pandemic. Small-scale businesses, agricultural sector, and informational sector consisting of women and elderly suffered considerable losses. 5% of workers in the informal sector lost their jobs in the first quarter of the pandemic. The citizens faced a crucial phase as there was no access to water and power. A tremendous loss of 1 billion euros marked in the tourism sector. Unemployment became a common crisis amid the pandemic, leading to poverty. The hospitality sector, including hotels, spas, also had to go through a recession. 12. Indonesia. The country has had 109 million coronavirus cases, claiming the lives of 30,227 people. A massive deterioration in all the sectors in the country leads to negative GDP growth. Foreign investments, reduced demands for exports, and low remittance further pushed the economy down. The agricultural industry also suffered a reduction of 13%. By the year end, the annual GDP landed under baseline between 5.3 and 7.3%. The consecutive quarters marked a decline of 5.3% in the second quarter and 3.5% in the third quarter. By August 2020, the number of unemployed people went like a shot to 2.7 million. The poverty rate increased to 9.8%, pushing an extra 1.63 million people into the abyss of poverty. 11. Bolivia. The country had 103 million infected cases, and 2.24 million people lost their lives. The annual GDP plummeted to 21.7%. The construction, transport, and mining sectors went through significant hurdles during the pandemic. The lesser demand in gas export affected the national income. The unemployment rates increased by 4% due to the global crisis. IMF approved US $327 million under RFI. The lower energy rates globally, quarantines, and economic expense, a halt in capital inflows caused a depression in national revenue. Liquidity problems and medical expenditures hit real hard. 10. Portugal. The number of individuals infected with the coronavirus is 726,000 and claimed lives of 12,757 people. The primary source of national income for Portugal is from the tourism sector. The country's 15% GDP rate depends on the tourism sector. It shrank by 7% due to the coronavirus outbreak. The government had an economic contraction of 6.9%. The demands in the export sector fell apart by 15.4%, suffering a significant loss. Due to the ban of flights and stringent lockdown measures, the tourism market collapsed. Portugal went through a debt crisis along with an increase in unemployment rates. 9. Brazil. Brazil has a statistics of 9.23 million infected cases and 225,000 deaths. The storm became fierce, triggered by the existing financial situation and unemployment challenges. Emergency assistance for dealing with their debts and bankruptcy became the federal call. Brazil had to cross the rapidly increasing inequality, 12.6% unemployment along with 5% hidden unemployment. A complete suspension of employment contracts left many stomachs to starve. Inadequacy of food, poor hygiene, improper housing conditions, and limited access to the public indicated the gravity of multidimensional poverty. 8. Argentina. The authorities detected the first case on March 3, 2020. In the following months, the number of cases increased significantly due to community circulation and climatic conditions, the winter season. By April, the Argentinian economy fell apart by 26.4%. Reduced household consumption, reduction in public services sent the economy to plummet by 20.6%. Roughly 45% of GDP depends on the Buenos Aires region, and it had to withstand strict protocols due to the rapid spread of infection. Before the pandemic, Argentina was already passing through a dire situation due to significant debts, and it only ended up getting worse. 7. Russia. The pandemic pushed the Russian economy into a deep recession due to the deterioration of crude oil rates by 53%. Approximately 103 million people were infected and marking the death of 2.24 million individuals. The GDP growth contracted by 6%. Household consumption shrank by 4.9%, fixed investments fell apart by 8%. A significant decrease in mineral resource extraction by 8.4% caused a reduction in fiscal revenues and trade volumes. The agricultural sector experienced disruptions in migrant labor availability and made production difficult. 6. South Africa. South Africa had 103 million cases and 2.24 million deaths due to the deadly virus. South Africa experienced a 5.1 to 7.9% fall in its GDP. It would take 5 years for the economy to recover from the exacerbated impact of the pandemic. The number of citizens undergoing poverty had a spike. Around 54% of people lost their jobs, pushing them into a vulnerable state to slip into poverty. Textiles, educational, tourism, and beverage sectors were negatively affected. 5. Iraq. Iraq experienced a dual crisis, including the oil crisis and a notorious viral infection. Oil being the federal foreign capital investment and national income caused a challenge to the economy. Up to 5.5 million Iraqis became prone to poverty. An additional 0.4 to 1.7 million could fall into the category due to reduced public wage bills and pensions. The national revenue fell by 47.5%, but the expenditure spiked high, leading to unequal imprints. Due to a deficit in budgets, many vital projects got postponed, and a decrease of 9.7% in GDP put them on the verge of falling off a cliff. 4. India. The authorities made a report of 10.8 million cases and 155,000 deaths. India had a downfall of 20 to 30% in the tourism sector. India has a high population rate and experiences high rates of unemployment. Unequal distribution of revenue categories the community into rich and poor with a massive difference in incomes and quality of living. Along with these challenges, the pandemic took a toll on GDP, leading to a negative growth. 3. USA. More than 26.5 million individuals were affected, and the virus claimed 447,000 lives. The annual GDP declined by 32.9%, giving a hard blow to the US economy. The consumer and business spending shattered, pointing out that resurrection would take an extended period. A collapse in the gross domestic product by 32.9% triggered the decline in GDP by 10%. And the first quarter of lockdown, the economy contracted by 5% pace and eventually entered into a recession by February. The stock market falls apart due to an explosion in cases in densely populated areas, and the situation couldn't be brought under control by authorities with increasing cases and death. 2. UK. An unprecedented recession period followed in the UK after the pandemic began. The UK has reported 3.85 million cases and 108,000 deaths. The financial outlook became miserable, pointing out a decrease in national revenue and negative GDP growth by reducing 25%. A new variant virus gave a hard blow on the country, causing the closing of the country's borders, halting commercial trades and foreign investment. These stringent lockdown measures will continue to a further fall in GDP in 2021. 1. Italy. Italy had 2.5 million cases and 89,334 deaths. Industrial production and trades were halted and resulted in a substantial loss, holding back the recovery. The brunt was borne more by self-employed and informal sector workers in a fair share. The latter experienced a drop of 19% employment opportunities, inevitably falling into a financial crisis. They entered a massive public debt ratio of 134.8%. An incline in corporate bankruptcies and financial difficulties made the situation precarious. The whole economic situation seemed gloomy. By that, we have come to the end of the video, pals. Let's hope that the world will tackle the virus and restore the economy to normalcy. Let us know your opinions in the comment section. If you liked the video, don't forget to drop a thumbs up. Stay tuned for more informative content.